Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about how you can take your single oscillator module and add a little more flavor and character to it to spice up the sound a little bit. So I'm just going to walk you through the process as I'm patching things in, and hopefully we'll come out with something nice at the end. So let's get started. All right, so first a quick tour of the modular here. We have an oscillator, a sampler. I have my audio signal path here, so fold processor, a couple of filters, a delay module. We have some versatile CV modules here, a clock generator, sequencer, quantizer, and a low pass gate, as well as a mixer, my interface on top, and a MIDI interface at the top. We're pretty much going to ignore most of this. We're going to use the Z3000 as the main oscillator, and then I'm just going to keep patching things in to add a little more flavor. All right, in order to make this video a little more tolerable, instead of listening to a static pitch the whole time, I'm just going to patch a quick little melody with the sequencer here. All right, so how can we make this a little more interesting? So the first thing we can do is add a bit of vibrato. So vibrato is just a change in pitch in a very subtle amount. So one way to do that is we can patch something like an LFO into the linear FM, which stands for frequency modulation. So we're going to be modulating the frequency or changing the pitch with some LFO signal. So I have an LFO in my peaks here. You can see this little light flashing here, so I can reduce that. And then I'm going to run it through the linear FM here. So if I bring this up, you can see that this LFO is changing the pitch. Obviously, we have a complete mess right now. So in order to get vibrato, you want a fast LFO rate, but a very subtle LFO modulation amount. So now we reduce the amount. So you can hear that vibrato effect now. And you can control the amount with this knob here. You can also use the same effect to get sort of Boards of Canada warbly kind of sounds by slowing down the rate. You get that sort of slow pitch shift. So I'm going to leave it back at vibrato. All right, so already our sound is a little more interesting, but not quite there yet. So right now we have a pure sine wave, or as close as a pure sine wave, because this is an analog oscillator. So what we want to do is add a little more harmonics so that we can then use a filter to remove those harmonics over time and warp the sound that way. So one way to get more harmonics is just to patch out a sawtooth wave or one of the other waves which have more harmonics than just the pure fundamental like the sine wave. So another way to do it is to run the sine wave through something like a fold processor, which folds the wave on itself, which results in more harmonics as well. So let's do that just for fun. So instead of going straight to my mixer here, I'm going to go into the fold processor. And then from the fold processor, we're going to go into the mixer. So now I can fold the wave. As you can see, we're getting these really interesting textures, almost these vocal type sounds. And again, we're just adding flavor over time. And you don't want to exaggerate all the steps. You want to kind of keep it subtle. And that's where you get more pleasing sounds, is by adding a lot more subtlety versus just one effect exaggerated. And what's cool here is that we can actually modulate this fold knob with some other signals. So again, I can run the second LFO from the peaks here, for example. So let's see what that sounds like. All right, so we've added a little more character. So now we have this morphing sound that harmonics are coming in and out via this LFO controlling the fold processor here. So now the sound might be a little too harsh. So what we can do is run it through a low pass filter, which I have right next to it here. We have the 2040. So again, we're just building up modules as we go and expanding our signal path here. So I'm going to unpatch my output from the fold processor, and instead we're going to run the filter output into my mixer. And then we're going to go from the fold processor into the filter here. So now we have a filter control to smooth out the sound. So what we can do now is that since we have a sequencer running with CV channels here to control our melody, we can also grab that same CV signal to control the cutoff frequency of the filter. So let's see what that sounds like. So in order to duplicate the signal, I'm going to patch in a stackable instead. So I'm going to unpatch this, grab one of my stackables here, bring that back through the quantizer, and now we have a duplicate of the signal that I can run into my filter FM here. So we already have a sound that's much more rich and interesting, and we're still running a pure sine wave out of the oscillator. So the next thing we can do is run it through the echophon, which is a delay unit. But instead of running it straight into the delay, right now we have a sound that is sort of continuous. So if we run into a delay, we'll get these sort of a little more of a messy signal. So instead, I want to make kind of staccato, bite-sized little sounds that I can run to the filter. So we can run it through the low-pass gate of the Optomix here, which is a combination low-pass filter and VCA. And there's something called a Vactrol in there, which you can strike, and that gives you these sort of staccato, bongo kind of percussive sounds. So again, I'm going to grab a stackable here, plug that in. What this does is it allows me to split my clock channel into the sequencer as well as into the Optomix. So I'm going to forward that signal. So let's see what that sounds like. So we have these nice little percussive sounds now. So again, same process. If we want to use the delay unit, we're going to run the Optomix output through the delay. So I'm going to unplug that and patch this middle cable here. And now we're running through the delay. So let's see what that sounds like. And we can slow down our clock rate here. And of course, we can modulate the echo time of the echophon as well. So we can either grab a CV channel from the sequencer, or I can grab an LFO from the maths here. And of course we can change the scale on our quantizer to get maybe a minor scale. And sort of to recap, I guess you can either start with a sound that's rich in harmonics like a saw wave and then run it through filters, or you can start with a sound that's very pure like a sine wave with very little harmonics and then run it through modules that create harmonics and then other modules that filter. And the reason you want to do that, especially in a modular, is that for each of these modules you have CV control over the parameters that alter their harmonic content. And that's what makes the sound more interesting, is adding subtle LFOs and sequencers to modulate all these different parameters. So you would start with a fundamental, you add some harmonics, and then the way you add those harmonics can be modulated. And then you can remove those harmonics, and the way you remove the harmonics can be modulated as well. And all the while you're sort of creating this organic patch little by little with subtle amounts of modulation. And at the end you get this sort of more complex sounding patch all of which started with just a pure sine wave. All right, thanks for watching. Make sure to like this video if you like it. Make sure to subscribe if you're into synthesizers. And if you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next one.